Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the short delay. We have a little technical hitch up the front here. What can I say? Thank you and welcome along, everybody. Good to see a few people along tonight. All the councillors present this evening, so thank you and welcome back to Russell after a few weeks off. Hope you slip straight back into the mainstream again quite well. 3.0, declaration of community interest, having viewed tonight's agenda. Does anybody wish to declare any interest? No, silence is noted. Thank you. 4.0, confirmation of the minutes of 18th of April 2023. I have a mover, Councillor Brown, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Reynolds, thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? No, thank you. I shall put them for acceptance. All those in favour? Unanimously, thank you. Uh, 5.0 is the Mayor's report. I require a mover for this. Thank you, Councillor Reid and Deputy Mayor, the seconder. Invite any questions regarding my meetings and agenda for the last month. Councillor Campbell, and Councillor Reid after that, please.
I was just wondering how your the couple with the cop went.
Yes, I got there late,
Cool.
but I was there for it. I thought it was pretty good. There's quite a few members in the room here that were at that, and it is quite significant to see having a neighbourhood watch now in Sorell. I think it can only be good for the community. Retired police inspector was there also, and heads all Peter Edwards, who heads it all up now, and he's very passionate about making it work. So I think the network can only grow and be good for the community.
Thank you. And also your meeting with Rebecca White and with Edmonds. What was that about?
That was a general catch up. We catch up at least twice a year with Rebecca. Brought Luke Edmonds along, who is their shadow local government spokesperson. It was interesting. We got to put the case that we didn't like their language around Luke calling the waste levy a bin tax and the negativity about that in the community. We also got to speak about what we felt was some of the issues that could be taken into consideration during the local government reform discussion that might be different from indications from what the Labor Party's view is. And it was just general about that. We also presented with our list of projects as we have it at the moment, as we do with all politicians that come anywhere near within arm's reach of us.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Thank you. My question's about the Waste Authority board meeting and what's on the agenda at the moment.
Look, there's not a lot. We've got another meeting coming up on Thursday. We have most of tomorrow there is a waste forum at Restaurant Casino, and several of the new CEO and chair also attended a waste forum in Coffs Harbour for a couple of days last week, which was a national one for local government. We now have a CEO in place, Paul Jackson, who was part of the legal team at Hobart City Council. He'll be working out of the Legat offices, and pretty highly respected, a lot of knowledge there. His waste knowledge isn't that huge, but it doesn't need to be. With Katrina Stevenson as our chair of the board, there is a fair bit of knowledge on that we're able to tap in through the councils to make it very effective. Our next move, sometime over the next couple of months, don't have a date set for it yet, is to start to look at strategic planning, and a lot of that will be discussion also with the core group, of which Greg Robertson from Sorell Council was part of, in forming that new authority, will be to detail some of the ideas from the 12 councils first up. So it'll be a two-part strategic plan to pick some things that we can actually get some progress on, and also pick some things that will be more of a medium to long-term basis as the waste levy grows, how we can use that money collected from waste to actually make some programs stick and work for us.
Thank you.
Still very formative, but yes. Councillor Adams.
I was just after some more information with your online meeting with the Reform Board.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Thank you.
Trying to think of how I summarise it. A large number of mayors at the moment are coming up with any excuse not to talk about the things that they are in a position to talk about on behalf of their communities. Now, whether that's for or against doesn't really matter. The opportunity is there in the reform package for all of us to look at Tasmania as a whole and a better way of doing it. It gives us the opportunity also to talk about things like transport corridors or different things where we cross over with different municipalities, and to pull down the thought of where a municipal boundary is and actually talk about the people that really matter. And that can be as little as a simple little thing like part of Southern Midlands, the Levendale and Runnymede area all come to play their sport and shop in our municipality. What does that mean to them, or how do they act with us instead of with their own municipality? Transport corridors are a big thing with the growing number of residents growing. Land use planning, industrial areas. There's a multitude of things we should be talking about, but Sue Smith as chair and Matt Healy were quite strong on the fact that it doesn't have to be for councils to be waiting for the government to tell them what their ideas and thoughts are, that we can actually meet and discuss a whole range of products, but for some reason many councils are holding back and just think if they keep their head in the sand, all this review will go away. So are they doing the best thing by their municipality? Probably I'd say no. Are they doing the best thing by their region or by themselves as being Tasmanian? I'd definitely say no. So the forum was a bit of a line in the sand to say that we've got a time limit. Now that looks like being extended by a month or two, which we've lost a month now and nobody wanting to talk. And that is on behalf of the municipality, that's a disgrace. It is poor leadership, and we're getting quite frustrated that we cannot bring a number of councils to the table just to have a discussion about the region, let alone anything else that might pop up shortly from the government local reform board as well. So still got a long way to go. We're hoping for some common sense discussion. It hasn't happened yet. Let's hope it happens over the next month.
Now, how long to go? Well, realistically, what do you think the timetable is now for amalgamation or boundary adjustment, or whatever we want to call it?
I'd say that's irrelevant at the moment. So they have those discussions first up, and we have been elected to lead the community and balance everything that we have to, whether it's roads, rubbish or future direction. Now, you can come up with all sorts of things on a whiteboard, but unless you've got the whole region, in our case, and the state throwing things around and nutting it out, it's not easy to go out to the public and explain the options or the possibilities or the passions or the vision, all those things that people look for out of a leadership team. So I would say the timeline's going to blow out by several months. And that's fine as long as progress is being made. It's when the progress isn't being made and people are coming up with some quite pathetic excuses why things can't be talked about. That's when you know you've got an issue. And at the moment, that's very closed mentality. We've just got to start talking a lot broader. We live in a different world now. If we're going to keep our head in the sand, we're going to go nowhere as a region and a state. So my gut feeling is it's going to be pushing hard towards Christmas, but who knows? Robert and I are happy to have those initial meetings as quickly as we can get people together to have those discussions. Now, we're not going to ever agree on everything, but at least having those discussions, it opens up sensible communication. And even if you hear 3 or 4 bad ideas or silly ideas, quite often a broader discussion comes out of those ideas on something that might work. And usually it's better than one person just having a vision. You need to have a lot of other input into it. So a lot of work still to do.
Are you worried then that individual personal choices are going to be making a decision rather than the voice of the community?
I don't think the community knows a lot of what it takes to run a region and everything, and that's only because you only know what you know. It's the same as us as individuals. On the other hand, you don't want the government making all the decisions for you. But if we're not strong enough to stand up and say what we need in, say, the southeast region, that is our main region, yes, we've got to expect for other people to make decisions for us. But if we're strong enough to figure out what's actually good for our community and the community voice is solidly behind you, then you have a good reason for going to the government and saying these are the options. But it's a bit of a chicken and an egg scenario now, which one comes first and how you have those discussions. But at the moment, there's a lot of brick walls that need to come down in all parts of the community and all parts of council leadership. And that may well include the ability of cabinet to make a decision that might suit some regions also. So there's still a long way to go. But it has been robust and it has been strong, and Sue Smith is a very strong chair. She's had a lot of experience in local government. She's had an enormous amount of experience in the legislative council as well. She's a strong person. Matt Healy is one of the best people I've ever come across in the local government director's position, and has accumulated a huge amount of knowledge. And that's not just knowledge in this state, it's also what's worked and hasn't worked in other areas. And it's not all about amalgamation or merger. Those words are becoming obsolete very quickly. That's got more to do with how you make your region work a lot better on behalf of everybody at a minimal cost.
Thank you.
Councillor Trinas.
Could I just add, Anzac Services, that just for councillor information, that Councillor Reid, I believe, laid the reef at Dunalley at one of the services, and I laid the reef at Primrose Sands 11 o'clock service. So we do get out there.
I say that Councillor Reid also emceed the one at Dodgers Ferry very well too, and if you want to see a very unique Anzac Day service on the foreshore at Dodgers Ferry, it's a very eerie feeling with the fog coming up over the water. So, yes, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Campbell.
Can you just provide us with some more information? You attended the winter food drop-off launch at Oaklands. What is that, and how does it operate?
It's something started out of Jane Howard's office in discussion with O'Coins regarding trying to be able to help for blanket drops, food for winter appeals and everything like that. And our local MLCs thought that it was better for it to be involved with all the neighbourhood houses in the municipality, including the Copping Christian Centre that acts in Copping for that. So we had a bit of a launch with Christian, who looks after the garden area down at O'Coins on that day, and it was quite fascinating. The response has been quite substantial already.
Thank you. And I did have, I think it was participated in the UTAS governance panel discussion research for project planning.
Yes. Tasman Community Fund financed a project that our own Andrew Hyatt from Best is involved with. It's a leadership program, Cert 4 in project management. And there are people from a couple of different councils, various departments and non-for-profits. And it's a course being run throughout the state to take a lot of very sensible people and give them their certificate in project management. I was asked by UTAS to speak at that. Marsha Batchelor was also asked to speak at it. And we're the little guinea pigs sitting up the front having people ask us all sorts of questions, and the subject for the day was local governance. So I had to declare that I have to have other people to do governance for me, because I like to be the action person more so than the governance person. But they grilled us for about 2.5 hours on questions that they'd developed in their work groups and everything like that. And it was quite interesting where they was coming from and what was able to contribute as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Can I have some information on your meeting with Susie Bauer?
Yeah, look, Susie just called in. She was down this way for a couple of get-togethers, and she asked could she just catch up for discussion from now that she has been pre-selected for Lions in the future federal election. And she was the candidate last time round. And once again, another politician, another list of our projects list, and we just had a general discussion that she was now being endorsed as the future candidate. Simple as that. So.
I just wanted to quickly add, I also attended the Primrose Sands Dawn Anzac Day service and the Sorell 11 o'clock service. I just wanted to commend those RSLs for the terrific service that they provided.
Yes, Primrose is something very unique. At 6 o'clock in the morning, they have trained kookaburras. I say they're trained because every year, right as they start their service, the kookaburras start. And it is so Australian and so unique. But at Dodgers Ferry, we also had the magpies, wasn't it, Melinda? And they started up at exactly the time that we all started having the service. Sorell's got to lift their game and find some bird to start chirping in the background to give that same uniqueness. Yeah, and also Denali fired back up again this year, and wasn't able to be everywhere at 6 o'clock. So Councillor Reid went down and did that, but that's good to see that small community now is starting to use a very nice facility there at the hall. That was, yeah, still very emotional those days.
One more question, if I may. The Copping landfill visit, a routine visit, or are there particular issues regarding the EPA?
No issues. It's actually pretty good. Wes Ford was there today to look at the new evaporation for the leachate, which is a quite simple machine. And we hope in the future that it will use some of the gas extracted from the site to power the machine, which is an evaporation process. And then the solids left over from that just get stored back into the C-cell. It was good to be down there with Wes because everything that happens down there has got to go through the EPA. So it was nice to walk around and have the same information flow exactly back to me or to Wes, and James Walker, who was also there as chair of the Copping Authority, as was Christine Wilmar, the chair of the board. And look, it's an amazing site when you look at what's happening. And we also had a look at the 3 different sites within the overall site of Copping where the organics operation may go. And I understand that the possible tenders for that facility have been down to look at the 3 sites to assess as part of their tender what may be the best site as well. So yeah, just a regular catch up.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions on my report, I shall put it for acceptance. All those in favour? Right, thank you. We have no supplementary items before us. 7.0 is the council workshops listed there, and there's a fair bit. I thank all the councillors for their contribution and assistance in forming this year's budget. It is a very big thing, especially when the councillors are relatively new to the role and understanding all those things that need to happen. So we've still got a way to go with it, but thank you for your efforts so far. 10.1 is the work group reports. May I move that, please? Councillor Brown and Councillor Campbell, thank you. And open the floor up for heaps of discussions to Russell Fox, saying he's been on leave. Or anybody else you'd like to ask comments on. Thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Russell. You had a meeting around potential upgrades to jetties. Was Lucian one of them jetties, or are you able to disclose which jetties?
Yeah. So through there, two jetties we talked about, one being Tiger Head and the other one being Lucian.
Yes.
So MAST have an amount of money that they've allocated, but they've got to get some engineering done on both the solutions. Lucian's is a deeper water jetty, but the protected wall isn't quite out far enough, and there's some reasonable tide rips through there. Tiger Head, they're talking about possibly a third traffic runway, but it is shallow there, so it only suits a certain amount of boats. So they're trying to work out the best. They'll ultimately do both upgrades, but one will happen before the other, depending on what the costs and what the priorities are.
Excellent, thank you for that. And just a question for Jess. You had a meeting with Youth Justice?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, what was that?
That was regarding a young person within the community that had been charged with damaging council property, and rather than going through the court system, they go through youth justice to speak to the people that are impacted by their activities.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
10.4, engineering, development engineering compliance. There's a comment re Paulina Road roundabout being temporary, the development being temporarily on hold. I see there's been some activity there in the last week. I wondered about, is there a timeline for completion for that, considering the number of houses that are being built there and the number of vehicles that are now coming out of that nasty little junction, and the Nugent Road exit not being ready yet?
Sorry, the development engineer has advised that they're proposing a mid-July completion date for the roundabout. The hold up was with Tas Networks and
And other services.
yeah, and to a less extent Tas Water, but it was principally Tas Network infrastructure had to be moved first, which has now happened. So they'll be back into it in earnest. And it was 8 weeks from now.
Yeah, so they've said that they'll be back on site seriously next week, is the latest update we've had. So we'll watch with, we know who's doing it, and we know who the board is, so we'll see how we go.
Okay, thank you.
Through me.
Councillor Reid, yes.
On page 6, there's mention of the risk treatment. Can I have an example, please, of what that actually means in practice?
Through me. So this is our part of Oliver's portfolio. So he's working through some risk treatment plans for those higher risk items that we have on our strategic enterprise risk register. But we're shortly will be in a position to work through them with the council. But it's just to get the first treatment actions underway for those residual high risks that we have. So we'll have that for council fairly soon.
But for each risk, they're obviously different depending on the nature of the risk. So some of the risk we'll have to accept, some we'll try and pass on to other people, and some we'll have to put monitoring and things in place. So there'll be a variety of actions depending on the nature of the risk and how much control council actually have in that.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to more information.
Councillor?
Thank you. On page 3, through the mayor, sorry, it says, meeting with planning and development proponents regarding potential sites in Oralton and Southern Reaches. Would you be so kind to give us an idea of what that was about?
Through the mayor, so it's a number of sites that are developers purchase over time, some of which are capable of being developed now. The existing zoning provisions allow that, so they're just in the process of forming up some concepts. So they're still some time away from being submitted as an application. But there's another site that is a longer term investment that would require an amendment to the Southern Tas regional land use strategy. So we've been aware of the sites, most of the sites and this developer's interests for a while. It's just the process to get them to whether it's a development or a subdivision application or applications has taken some time. So we're just working through some preliminaries with them, and we'll see if they actually submit an application.
I'd just like to congratulate the staff on putting together a good application and the successful win, if you call it win, but this is a win, for the Healthy Focus grant to create a footpath along the Sorell rivulet. I'd like to thank the staff for their efforts and well done. It's a good opportunity.
We certainly do well with a lot of those grants. There is a lot of work involved in them, and the wording is so important, and we've learned a lot over the years and continue to refine our applications and keep getting successes. So.
Thank you. The General Manager, you're meeting with Mast and the Dunalley Marina. Where are we at with that? 'Cause
Through the
I
mayor.
have been asked.
It's not good when it starts with a.
Well, I mean, it was the meeting had with Russell with Mast to discuss the potential upgrade of either Lewisham or Tiger Head, both facilities. And while we had them there, they actually asked us what the update was on the Dunalley Marina. So I did my best to inform them and remain professional in the process. So still, the council's been removed from the potential leasing arrangements now. So now it's just a matter between the proponents and the government to actually negotiate a head lease, to negotiate a lease over both the seabed and the Crown foreshore. I haven't had an update from the proponent. The last I heard from them was January or February this year, when the decision to remove us out of that process was made, which we were content with. But as to how far the progress, or how far the state government's progress, the preparation of actual lease documents,
So
otherwise,
it could take some time. No,
through the mayor, it has taken some time, and it may take some more time.
I have got a couple of others. If we
Keep going,
continue.
you're right.
General Manager, Councillor Marisol asked the one about the development in Southern Beaches and Sorell, but the other one I got down is your meeting with State Growth, the Southern Tasmanian land use planning strategy and regional planning, and at what stage does the councillors have any input?
Yeah, through me, that one dot point is a number of dot points. So the state government, through the state planning office, have taken a different view now on how they're going to go about amending the Southern Regional Land Use Strategy. So It's still forecasting that it will commence very soon, and the process will conclude as in a new or updated strategy by the end of next year. So as part of that process, there'll certainly be public consultation, there has to be. The Southern Councils are assisting with the process, so the government has agreed to fund a regional planning coordinator, and each of the Southern Council will be contributing to that as well. That will shortly be advertised. That'll be for the best part of 18 months for the duration of the project. So that coordinator will have the challenging task of making the review happen on time and comprehensively. So that's very positive. That's quite a change from how we've been spinning our wheels for a number of years. So there's an agreed work plan. There's a deed that the government has entered into with the STCA to provide funding in exchange for the coordinator, and as I said, there's a work plan that goes with it, which sets out all the various stages and when they will be done, hopefully. Separately to that, the prior arrangements around making minor adjustments to the regional land use strategy, that has changed significantly now over time. So there's been different ministers, different advisors, and they've just recently worked through some what they call sort of stage one changes that they were prepared to accept in the interim, which are comparatively minor to the land use strategy, and principally around the urban growth boundary.
Which is what we saw last meeting, wasn't it?
Yes. So not all those are accepted though. They'll be advising of that, I think, this week, what is in and what was not unsuccessful. So that really will be the extent of any changes now until the full review of the strategy is done. So there were only comparatively minor changes approved with respect to Sorell with urban growth boundary to reflect really what is existing as part of the urban footprint, but that was it.
So there will be opportunity for councillors at some stage to discuss amendments
Yeah, well, the opportunities for every.
the plan, to the strategy.
Yes, there'll be opportunities for each council and for the broader community to provide input into the review process. I can't tell exactly when that will be, but it'll be, I suspect it will be next calendar year. So there's a range of studies they need to do around residential supply and demand and industrial land in particular. So they're going to be separate consultancies, I suspect, and then when they're done and actually producing an updated strategy that has more up-to-date demographic data in it than what it has, which is 2006, so slightly out of date, there will certainly be processes involved for consultation and feedback, absolutely.
Which will take possibly 2 years.
The intention is that the work plan that we've proposed that they've agreed to is that the minister would be delivered a revised strategy by the end of next year, subject to about 30 things falling into place.
Right. Thank you. There was a question, a reason why I asked that, but
I guess that, just for clarification, it won't be amendments, it'll be a whole new strategy though, come out of it.
Yeah.
Incorporate everything that we need.
I mean, it may still be take the same form, but all the underpinning data and strategy around it will be fresh. I don't know if they're going to effectively discard and start again, but they'll certainly update all the
as long as
assumptions
we
and
have
modelling.
input.
There'll certainly be input.
Can I continue?
Yes, we can.
Page 8 on the BMX saga. We've invoiced Glenmore Council for $433,597. We haven't received that yet. Have you any idea how much on top of that we will have to forget
For me,
at this stage?
I'll put Russ on the spot. So the project was slightly over, it's just on $1 million.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
we had 650,000 funding provided through Glenorchy and Community Sport Rec. So the balance we were having to fund, and we've been advised verbally only at this stage from the Minister's office that there will be another $100,000 coming our way next financial year, but it's otherwise an approved budget, an approved capital project built into the financial strategy, and the only exclusions at this stage are effectively perimeter fencing, which we're still determining.
Yep.
And just getting power to the site.
Yes, I remember.
So 250.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, so the council commitment that council approved is $250,000 net for the project. Yep. Thank you.
And just so finally, the intention is that the project will commence, it'll be early next financial year, and it should be, we hope to be completed by November, sometime during November. So this calendar year, should say.
Thank you. Last one, page 16, is the Sorell streetscape and community feedback on the possible mural on Mitre 10. How are we going to consult with the community on that one? Heritage and all the other things that are mentioned on page 16.
Through me, I might just put Jess on the spot about that aspect, but we haven't quite got the other thing because we're still negotiating with the tenant. So Mr. Holt still owns the building, but I believe who's running it. So tenants have it, so we've had very good dealings with Mr. Holt around providing permission as owner, but the leasing arrangements are such we have to deal with tenants separately, and it's taken some time, so we haven't yet actually got it cleared away that we can do it. But as far as the what actually goes on there, how are we proposing to deal with that?
Stacey and Sharon will do a consultation plan around how they do that, and the person that's been engaged to do the mural has extensive experience in working with communities, so that was part of the reason why they chose him, that he will work with the community in the design.
Can I ask who?
I can't recall his name.
It's
For
the
question.
artist who did the tank.
Oh,
Jamin.
That's right.
He's good.
We're in good hands.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
So here's the commission, we've just got to work out what exactly.
That's very good.
Similar sort of artistic skills that you have there.
Or no. I've had trouble with a stick.
No, we won't get here.
It'll be an admirable solution for them.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
you're going. Thank you. Thank you. Page 32, I'm sorry, to the mayor. There's project engineer, vulnerable road user program about the grant application for Gate 5. There was a resident that sent a letter that had an accident right there, and he lives in that street. So my question for the general manager is if there was an opportunity to go and check that site, because I believe that the accident he mentioned was not exactly where this bus stop that is part of the grant.
Yeah, through this, so the grant application is to install a footpath principally for kids using the school bus. At the moment, it's informal and I think may traverse the private property as well. So it's to formalise a much better access from Gate 5 Road around Carlton River Road to where the bus stop is, but probably an informal bus stop. Yeah. But as far as the safety of that junction between Gate 5 and Carlton River, we're not really aware of any particular safety issues with it. It's not to say that obviously accidents can't happen, because they have happened, but yeah, we're not aware of any particular design flaws or issues with it. So yeah, at this stage we haven't proposed any solutions or grant applications for it.
Because it's a road that is a curve with an edge, you know it, so it is quite dangerous from not being able to see around the curve. I think that's the problem, the cars coming in. So I was wondering about this and what to respond to this resident that sent me the letter. So is it something that is not part of this grant and we're not looking into improving? Is that?
Well, I need to, through the amendment, defer with Russell as far as we need to have some discussions with state growth around the criteria that they have for these sorts of, it's usually black spot funding would be what would be relevant for that. And there needs to be a range of, it's a bit macabre, but there needs to be a range of thresholds you need to meet in order for it to be considered with crash data and statistics around that. So we can certainly have a discussion with state growth around that, but I don't know if we have enough. I mean, the data generally comes from Tas Police, and we would supplement that with any traffic count data or speed data that we can list. I don't know if we have any now or not, but
I think we do have some information on K5 because we've had speeding issues down there a few times before, which is more about behaviour, which is more a police issue than a council issue by nature in terms of whom,
Thank you.
Sorell?
Oh, sorry.
No. I've had a few people ask me in the community when the playground at Paulina is going to be open. Have we had any further? Because I think council put up it was going to be March early on.
yeah, through the mayor, I just asked our planning manager, Shane, to make contact with the developer because we too were under the impression that it would have been open by now. So it's certainly completed. But I haven't heard back from Shane as to where his inquiry's got us. But I think there's no reason why it shouldn't be open to the public. So we'll report back on that when we've got an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you to the mayor. In page 22, there's mention in natural resource management that there's plantation in Sorell, Rivulet completed and plantation in Blue Lagoon progress. Is that, do we have a revegetation or planting or tree planting program? Is that what it is?
Sorry, can you give me that page number again?
22, 23,
sorry.
yes.
30 seconds.
Natural resource management? Or is this just part of street work or?
This is plantation, Sorell.
Yeah, at the end of the page.
Yeah, I need to confirm with DBAS quite what that means. I'm not sure with respect to Rivulet whether he's done some re-veg planting in there. And with Blue Lagoon, obviously we've commenced some stormwater works, and he's proposed a range of operational considerations for next financial year for Blue Lagoon with respect to a range of scope of works, but I'm not sure what specifically the plantation in Blue Lagoon is referring to.
She's interested in Sorell Rivulet. It says plantation in Sorell Rivulet completed,
We'll find out and get back to you.
Thank you.
On report from councils.
Through the mayor. Thank you, Dee. On page 18, there's a growing list of policies under review, and some have been on that list for a long time. What's the process that ends up with it? What will we
page
end
is
up
that?
with? Because page 18,
Thank you.
how and when will those policies reviews be done?
Through the mayor, they have different timelines by when they're due. Some policies are council policies, therefore public, so they have to come to council for adoption once they've been reviewed, and others are management policies, which we do internally. But for each of those, it's either the two directors, Jess, Russell, or myself, or the work group managers who have responsibility for them. So when the three of us and those other managers, we get set them as to when they're due, and from that it's up to each of the individuals to manage that process.
Thank you.
There's nothing else, I shall put the work group's report for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. We shall move on to 11.1, petition inappropriate zoning, Charcourt Road, Pennant. Have a mover, please. Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Campbell, thank you. And in relation to the extra information and that letter coming in, General Manager, would you like to make a comment on that, please?
Through the mayor, so that one of the petitioners sent through yesterday, I think it was, some additional information about the rezoning history of this area, and I acknowledge that it was certainly the case with prior ministers, I use that as appropriately as plural, that there were purported mechanisms available where a council could request an amendment to the Southern Regional Land Use Strategy, and more particularly to the urban growth boundary. But since that time, which was around circa 2019, between the State Planning Office and the government, they've changed their approach to how, because that process that prior ministers and prior executive commissioners of the Planning Commission had introduced, it was a bit of a failure, the process around it and just the manner in which they were dealt with. So that small window didn't last very long. And now, as I said, because the formal review of the strategy is imminent, that the last opportunity to make any small changes to the strategy has just happened through the State Planning Office, and very minor changes, principally to the urban growth boundary location. So my view, at least I'll confirm this with the planning manager, but my view is a rezoning of this scale, there's no way there's a reasonable or central mechanism to get that through the systems at work. It would have to be incorporated as part of the broader Southern Land Use Strategy review.
Which is what I was referring to
Yes,
earlier,
correct.
where I was coming from.
Yes.
I've led into this discussion. Quite
Which
nicely,
led,
your question. Yeah. Any other comments from councillors around the table? Councillor Campbell?
Thank you. Just in relation to the petition, so it's wanting to change it from rural to rural living. What is the difference between rural and rural living? I'm assuming it's to stop further developments like the one storage facility. Is under rural living, is there potential for developments like this to happen under rural living?
Through me, I'd need to confirm, but my expectations under the rural living zone storage facility would not be possible. Obviously, it is under the rural zone, it's the planning authority dealt with only recently. So the range of uses under the rural living zone are more restrictive than the rural zone. There's obviously better potential to subdivide under the rural living zone. It's generally 1 or 2 hectare minimum lot sizes, whereas the rural zone it's 100 acres, 40 hectares, I think, used to be. So there's less development potential rural living, but more subdivision potential fundamentally.
Thank you.
So through the mayor, when it comes to a matter of rezoning then, council doesn't have any power over this, so would the petitions be better to go to the government?
Through Mayor, that it's a little bit convoluted when council's acting as a planning authority for what I call normal development applications, whether it's a house or units or minor subdivision. Because that's based on a recommendation from the professional staff, and whether the decision's done on a delegation or comes to the council acting as a planning authority. If there's a pure right to that with that decision, that's through what used to be the Resource Management Planning Appeals Tribunal, which is now TASCAT, Tasmanian. I don't know what it stands for. Anyway, it's the new version of the Planning Appeals Tribunal. Whereas a rezoning application, that is through the Tasmanian Planning Commission, which is an entirely separate body. Similarly, are a statutory body, and it's still the planning authority's decision to support or not is still predicated on receiving obviously an expert report or reports from the staff, and there's a different process involved where it needs to pass an initial test with the council acting as planning authority if it's going to continue through the process to being put out a public exhibition, and then it comes back to the council's planning authority to consider any submissions that may have been made, and then it heads off to the planning commission, and they hear they consider the matter afresh and potentially hold a public hearing if there was any submissions received. And going back to the first step, if the planning authority can actually not support the recommendation or go against the recommendation of the planner's assessment. If the planner assessment is to support it, the council can say no, we're not, and that's the end of it. There's no appeal rights or no mechanism to the planning commission. Conversely, if through the process the planning authority wants to differ from the officer's recommendation, it continues to the commission, but then it's like a normal tribunal matter where if the planning authority's view is different to the professional assessment of their staff, you need to find consultants prepared to support the planning authority's decision and have really strong grounds. So it's less of a cost to a third party, a planning amendment challenge through the planning commission compared to the tribunal. The tribunals can be very expensive, but ends up at a full hearing. But again, this particular issue with these properties in this area, it's had quite a history from when the request was put in some years ago under the interim planning scheme, where at the time the extent to which the regional land use strategy, how it was considered, and the statutory function of that strategy was very different to what it is now. And it was easy to put a case in support of the rezoning, but it was unsuccessful. And then we ended up with the LPS process, the local provision schedule, so the new planning scheme, and that a submission was put in as part of that process by some residents, but it failed the test with the planning commission. So, my view to councillors is there's no point putting in or trying to get that regional land use strategy amended to enable this to occur. I just think it's wasting time and people's money.
Thanks.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. So first of all, obviously, I'm not sure if the people in the petition are actually also the landowners of the land they're wanting rezoned. So if they're not, and the landowners object to it, then what happens? And also the rough costs involved and who pays for those costs given this petition, because I know it's different if you were trying to rezone your own land, but given that this is trying to rezone a whole lot of land, that's a much bigger project and who foots the bill for that.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, this purpose of this report with this petition is simply to just accept the petition that's effectively been received. So it's been legally made, legally submitted, we can accept it. The follow-up report, which we have to prepare within, I think, 42 days of this, is what we're going to do, if anything, in action in support of or against the petition. So that's one process. The other aspect around, for argument's sake, if an amendment to the planning scheme was made on behalf of a number of properties by a private party, they need to have the consent of every affected owner before they can lodge the application. That isn't the case if the council was initiating the amendment to the planning scheme. But as I said before, I would not recommend council goes down that path.
Thank you.
Did I answer? Sorry, there's a range of questions.
Oh, and there was cost involved
Oh,
if it did go ahead.
Well, it's no different to a normal plan application where you need to have expert reports in support of your case. So the struggle we would have is that when council consider the public submission process of the LPS, our planning staff recommended that that the amendment wasn't justified, which the planning commission also agreed with. So we can't ask our planning staff to propose an alternate view to that. So we need to find someone. So that'd be best part of $10,000 to get that report done.
If somebody was prepared to do it.
And then, when there's a whole system in place now and process in place to deal with the regional land use strategy, the process to amend that and review it. If you could find a planning consultant to put a case up as to why that should be ignored, if you like, and this dealt with in isolation, I would suspect that the planning commission would give scant regard to that type of report. It's just, through the passage of time, different ministers, different advisors, different iterations of the state planning office, that window of opportunity that was there some years ago, in my view, is not there at all for something of this nature.
Councillor Miro Gustavo.
Oh, thank you. Through the mayor, I have two questions. One is, just to summarize, so we received this petition and then you go about developing a report on how we will go about it. So you do all the investigation and call the different authorities to see what's possible? No.
Oh, through me. The follow-up report, there's two elements to this petition. The first is with respect to the prior application, which we can't, it has no jurisdiction on that. We established that last week, I think it was last week. And the second aspect around the rezoning, my report will be simply a case of confirming with the planning manager that my interpretation of the statutory process that we've now got to consider the regional land use strategy, or more to the point, not able to consider it, is accurate. And that will be the follow-up report to council. This is how the system is now working, and my view on whether council should do anything around that will be contained within that.
And
For the next council meeting. 42
Yeah,
days, so it normally complies with the next council.
It'll be, next council.
Thank you.
It may not be any different to what you've already said.
No, I deliberately, by virtue of the nature of the petition and the history with that area around the rezoning efforts, I just couldn't see why I would just do a very basic report, not touch on the matters that I was aware of for the benefit of the petitioners. So it's more just a case of confirming with the planning manager that my understanding of the situation is still accurate, which it should be.
thank you. And the second question is, for this process to work, every single landowner needs to be involved. Is that correct?
If a private party or third party was lodging the application for the rezoning, every single property in the area they're nominating, the owner would have to provide written consent for the application to be lodged.
Thank you. So there is also another way to do it, potentially changing each, so if all property owners will be agreeing to do it as a whole, they could also do it individually. Is that correct? So if they wouldn't have to go through all of these commissions and,
Through the mayor, any amendment of the planning scheme has to go through the Tasmanian Planning Commission. They are the statutory body that says yes or no. It's a slightly convoluted process to get there compared to a normal application, but they are the statutory body that makes the decision. They do their own independent assessment, potentially part of a public hearing, but they make the decision. So my view, based on the history of this, is that if each of the owners chose to pursue a rezoning of their own property, I'll be hesitant to recommend that. The costs involved and the likelihood of success, I wouldn't be pursuing it. I couldn't recommend. I'd be conscious that that's a good spending of money.
thank you.
Thank you. Being no other comments, I shall put the motion of 11.1 to be the petition to be accepted. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 11.2 is a petition recommendation for restricting vehicular access to Conley's Marsh Beach. A move, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brown and Councillor Reid as seconder, and open the floor up for discussions on this. Once again, General Manager, would you like to summarise on this?
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Would you like to summarise on this as well as the bus trip? We had a little technical point there.
This is a tricky one where we've had requests, both council and parks have had requests over a number of years for the one public vehicle access to the beach to be closed. Conversely, we've had requests or have been told by others that it should absolutely remain as is. I've had dealings with parks around how they'd like to deal with it over the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 years. They haven't been firm that they think public vehicle access should be restricted to the beach. They've acknowledged that some landowners along the beach have their own vehicle access onto the beach, which hasn't been approved or formalised over whatever time frame. So there's certainly some minor things that council could do to assist in an amenity sense. In other words, stopping the uninitiated driving down there and getting involved every time. The fact that you can't turn around and there's no parking there. There's also an area of the road reserve, just as you, on the left-hand side as you're driving down the hill toward that little beach access that is wide enough to accommodate parking, but we had prepared no design or cost estimate for that, but we can certainly do so. The extent to which that's going to be well received by the people living opposite, I don't know yet. But I really need to get, this isn't a situation where it's a council access on council beach. It's council access leading to a Crown Beach. So I need to get absolute confirmation from parks what their position is on if they want vehicles, public vehicles, to still get onto the beach from that road reserve. And if they say no, then we, as a responsible road authority, would work with them to install they're the authority that have control over that beach. But the same token, it's a matter for them as to what they want to do with those properties that have their own vehicle access on the beach. And I've tried to get hold of them prior to the agenda report being formalised, but I haven't yet had a confirmation position from them.
Thank you, Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, has, in preparing this or in considering council's position, have we, I noted that Collins Marsh Beach and obviously foreshore access was one of the areas considered in the 2002 Foreshore Access Management Strategy, which Council had recently agreed to update. Have we made progress on that, and will that help in this situation?
Well, through me, no progress has been made on that. I mean, I haven't had a chance to confirm with Parks or any other expert authority if there's any environmental aspects of that. I suspect there's not. I mean, the vehicle access has been to that beach for, I presume, decades. But, no, I haven't progressed the review of that foreshore access strategy as yet.
And through you, Mayor, the big problem with that, well, they allocated the responsibility for everybody and nobody's taking any responsibility for the actions that they were allocated out of that report. So Parks and Wildlife was said, these are the things you should do, Council, these are the things you should do, other parties, these are things you should do, but none of those parties have actually got any action anyway. So you can have Parks and Wildlife as the authority saying,
Yes.
yeah, unless they're going to make a decision whether they want to support it or not, we're no further advanced one way or the other.
Through you, Mayor, I'd just like to note that the Public Open Space Strategy consultation and the recommendations, Council has just endorsed that, including the update of the Foreshore Access Management Strategy as a sensible step, because it is largely still applicable. Even though it's 2002, it was done as a collaboration between Council, Parks and Wildlife as it then existed, and local community. So I can only suggest that going forward, that would seem to be a sensible move for situations like this. Once we discover where we're at with it, to have it well documented so that other people don't have to go through the same contortions in these sort of situations.
Precisely, that's where you're it's about the commitment to those policies rather than just writing down the problem.
That's right. Yep.
When everybody's prepared to sign off on the plan until you have to actually do something and spend some money, and then nobody wants to know about it.
Through you, Mayor, one more thing, if I may. The mention of the, and where is it? Boat access. I believe in my conversations with the community that there is, and again, I think it's mentioned in that Foreshore Access Management Strategy, there is designated boat access at the western end of the beach. And again, that was one of these issues that has been an historical thing, but not followed through in practice. So it might be worth having a look at again. And noting the poor, well, the very low resourcing that Parks and Wildlife have, which doesn't help anyone in these situations.
Any other questions or comments? Cam?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, obviously, is it still the road that's in the name of Leslie and Smith, and then the roadway next to it that's still owned by Kierman? That will be transferred to council, obviously, before we can do anything, or what's the process?
No, through me, there are numerous road reserves still in the name of the subdivider that goes back decades. It doesn't change the function of them. They're a public road reserve, but in terms of carrying out works, I just need to clarify if there's any risks with that. I suspect not, but the cost to pursue all these non-transferred road reserves to council over 40 plus decades would be hundreds of thousands for not much benefit. So,
Yeah. And the other question has got recommendations to install signage at Knights Road as there's no turning and parking. Should we also add something like full drives only and for launching boats or something?
well, that's so through me. That's the difficulty we have. It's not our beach, so I'd need to take advice from parks around. I mean, fundamentally, what they want to do with allowing vehicles on the beach, not that. Secondly, if they have a preference for Meeting's over. What'd you do, Des?
Time.
It's all right, I'll get it fired up again. Yeah, if parks have a preference for some additional information to go on our sign, if you like, I'm more than happy to put that up, but I need to get direction from them.
Given that it's our sign and for our Pleasant Road, could we do the four-wheel drive only access, because it's to stop the two-wheel drives driving down there and getting involved along that road? Not so much to do with the beach access, but.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
There's certainly the ability before you even get to the crown boundary to bury a normal car, as many have.
Yeah. Great. I think that's it, thank you.
Thank you. A quick question about Primrose Sands, since we are looking at this petition. Will,
Sorry, this petition is on Companies March, so we don't see the relevance in going to a different part of the community. Sorry, is it a question relating to this petition or? Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Could I just make a comment that I'm just amazed that parks still allow and won't do anything about vehicles on beaches for safety reasons. And I did note that Tas Police don't have any authority to go onto the beach, which amazes me. If somebody's hurt, they'll go on there straight away, I'm sure, regardless.
Oh, so in terms of the Traffic Act, they can't.
They
For
can't.
speeding, for argument's sake, if the public are being
Ballooning on the
dangerous
beach
or, yeah, they can certainly take action around that, but not, so unlike say Fraser Island where the police can deal with the beach as a normal, roadway, that's not the case there.
Thank you. Any other comments relating to this petition? Councillor Reid?
Through you, Mayor, just further to that, I can't remember, must have been 2020, 2021, early days of Southern Beach's Navid Watch, and hooning was a major issue. Conversations with the police inspector at the time, acting police inspector at the time, included mention of this and other beaches, Primrose Sands, etc. And I'm fairly sure that members of the public were encouraged to report them and that police would act on the safety and hooning and that sort of thing, so that the police jurisdiction does extend. It just depends what's being done.
Yeah, and got evidence, yeah.
Yes, and that you know, again with in line with those important key messages, you know, reporting things is the important first step. So that's the best thing the public can do in the meantime.
Thank you. If there's nothing else on this relating to the petition at hand and the response to it, I will put this motion. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Right, 12.0 land use planning. The Mayor advised in accordance with the provisions of Part 2, Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993 is to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 12 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. 12.1 is the Sorell Planning Authority minutes. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Brown, thank you, and Deputy Mayor, seconder, thank you. Any correspondence on those minutes? No, thank you. I shall put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. Okay, 13.1 is the proposed disposal of public land. Mover for this, thank you. Councillor Campbell and councillor Gatehouse, a seconder. And invite discussion. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. In reading this, I'm just unsure of who sort of disposed of it. Who will be buying it or taking it over? Is it from the original development?
Through Mayor, it'll be effectively the body corporate of that unit development, Australian unit development.
Cool, thank you.
Takes the liability away from us into the bloody corporate where it should sit for something like this.
Makes sense.
Does. Any other questions regarding this transfer? No, I shall put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 13.2 is the copying joint authority certified rule changes. Move please. Councillor Reid, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Gatehouse, thanks. And, anybody like to ask any questions on this before I put the motion? A few more of these come forward as things change in relation hopefully to the C-cell and things like that. Just a couple of years,
Through Mayor, I'd just like a comment, I suppose, that it's reassuring to have this level of professionalism and level of detail being worked through, so good to see.
The company secretary for all this is on the ball big time and is pretty sharp. Saves us a lot of money in legal consultation and fees as well. With that, I shall put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 13.3 is the Legat General Manager Committee. Do I have to move second for each one? Just move second for
The moving second recommendation, yeah, take
the
nomination, vote, nomination, vote.
Yep. Clarification here, just seeing for the GM, we've had a fair bit of discussion regarding the General Management Committee and those nominated for it, so I shall ask for a motion and seconder, and then for it as a recommendation, and then we'll deal with 1, 2, 3 and 4 individually. Thank you. So can I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Campbell and Councillor Reid, thank you. And ask for somebody to put forward a nomination for point 1. Councillor Campbell, you were there.
For the Southern Electoral District, I'd like to nominate Paula Reid, right?
No, less than 20,000.
The less, sorry, very sorry. So the Southern Electoral District, less than 20,000, to nominate Michelle, as she's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other nominations for that point 1? If there's no other nominations, I shall put that for acceptance of Michelle for that position. All those in favour? Against? 1 against, thank you. Point 2 for the Southern Electorate Division with more than 20,000. Councillor Reid?
Yes, thank you. I recommend council nominates Paula Reid.
Do I have any other nominations for that position at all? Thank you. I shall put the for acceptance for point 2 for Paula Reid. All those in favour? Passed unanimously on that one. Point 3, thank you. Somebody for determination of the voting on the Legat President's position. Deputy Mayor?
I would recommend Mick Tucker.
Thank you. Do I have any other nominations for that position? Thank you. I shall put the vote for Mayor Tucker. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thanks very much. And point 4 for clarification to authorise the mayor to execute and submit the ballot paper on the 15th of June. That can just become part of the vote for acceptance of the lot. I should put the motion of 13.3 as pointed out through those 1, 2 and 3. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 15.1 is community grants program. Somebody like to move this for the Families Tasmania and the Tasmanian Brick Enthusiasts? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. As a second, Councillor Brown. Anybody like to make a comment on this at all? Councillor Reid, thank you.
Only that they're two of the easiest community grants to consider because there's such outstanding benefit to the broader community. So great to see them both, and council being able to support them both.
Thank you. Then I should put that for a recommendation for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 15.2 is the community grants program. Move for this, please. I'll take Councillor Trenius and Councillor Casado, thank you. Exchange. And we've got discussions from the floor. Councillor Campbell.
I'm on a roll today. And it might not be the time, but just in relation to the wheelchair storage, which I think is a fabulous idea. Just with the access with the beach matting to the water's edge, I've just noticed, and it might be in the future to fix it or continue it, I'm not sure, but it still seems to stop in the soft stand, which for like wheelchairs and prams and things like that is going to cause an issue. Is that going to be extended?
There's two parts of that. One is the decking that has gone down, which we did as part of grant Parapod, and then the surf club also were recipients of a grant 2 years ago, 12 months ago, just looking at Jess, a while back anyway, for the matting, as you quite often see in beaches in Queensland and so forth, where it takes in soft sand or any other type of sand down to the water's edge. So that's all part of the big package, and we constantly and have offered a ongoing communication basis with Parapod should they have any other issues, because it seems that the beach has ticked on those boxes that they need, want, and have to enjoy part of our local municipality.
Great. Thank you.
Well, I think, yeah, due to the shifting sands, it certainly works better at the park beach end than it does down the
I think if the cover beach is quite soft.
But there's quite a bit of movement of sand, which is why we have to continue this week, that decking as well, by the very nature of the sand dunes in the area.
Yeah, but it's not very.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Some of those people have been consulted with our municipalities, so they're fully aware of the exact conditions.
Yeah.
So they're not just talking hypothetically, they're talking factual.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Very happy to support this. Given that was it last year or the year before, a community conversation at the surf club itself where this was raised as a challenge to council almost in terms of, well, what are we doing? And then the club itself, the community members and council have got together and risen to the occasion and provided this solution, but also the important part of this is the Disabled Services Association and how successful they've been in a relatively short time in attracting over 100 volunteers to run their events, and they will be, I'm assuming, users of these facilities too.
So, also good to see a couple of other community organisations step forward to be part of this with the Surf Club and the disabled Paraquat organisation, as well as partnering with council. It certainly helps when you have, when you either go to talk to government or other funding bodies for something more major, the ability to be able to say that other parts of the community have been involved in assisting and got behind some of these projects makes a huge difference in those communications. So, thank you. With that, I shall put the motion for acceptance of 15.2. All those in favour? Very strong yes from everybody. Thank you. Sixteen point zero, 16.1, the executive summary financial report April 2023. Another mover, thank you. Councillor Reid, seconder. Councillor Gaydhouse, thanks. And questions, answers, queries? Financial report. Councillor Trenius, yes,
Just page 95, and the recycling centres are below budget by about 33,000. Is that because Sorell has been closed down? Russell, is that?
I would guess it's because they haven't put their invoices in council.
Oh,
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
I thought,
I think we've been having plenty of work done at most of them as the community, probably
Right.
a little bit more at Dodgers than we have at Sorell,
Oh,
but they do need regular cleaning.
if there was an underspend,
No.
I thought we might have been able to put a little bit into
No.
the Dodgers Ferry,
I
clean up a bit more.
mentioned that we'll be fully billed by the end of the financial year.
Right, oh, that's a shame.
Greg did mention last night in the forum that our spend on them is actually over because of extra pickups and extra cleanups.
Yeah,
Yeah, as a whole, I think if you're quite right, it's invoicing.
it's a type,
Not a true indication.
it's
at
timing
this
issue
stage.
rather than,
Yes.
an absolute.
Mhm.
Through Mayor, I guess the headline being, on the report being above budget by over $500,000 in terms of revenue and under budget by nearly $1 million expenses. I take it that's a timing for a temporary situation as well in terms of either timing of invoices or payments, or are there some other factors that have impacted us this year?
Oh, through me, it's a combination of everything, it really is.
Yeah,
We're growing, obviously residential growth is strong. We've also have some unexpended, we'll have some unexpended grant funding, but it's certainly some timing issues around at this time of year with suppliers as well as their own projects to be concluded, and there's $340,000 worth of contributions through in public open space, cash and car park and cash and lieu. So there's a variety of elements that make up that increase to above budget revenue side of things, but
I imagine it'll come back a bit, but it'll still be under expenditure on operations and our revenue will be up compared to what we forecast.
okay,
But
Thank
maybe not by the quantum
thank you.
that we've got here at the moment.
If there's nothing else on the financials, I shall put that for acceptance. All those in favour? Unanimously, thank you. 16.2 is the 23-24 fees and charges recommendation. Have a mover, thank you. Councillor Campbell, and a seconder, thanks. Councillor Trenius, thank you very much. If you provide any questions or comments, we've workshopped this extremely comprehensive, and I see Councillor Sada is moving the microphone close and handy, so I guess you have a
Yes.
question, do you?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So, yes, I've given it a lot of thought to the fees and charges for this year. And with everyone's permission, I would like to just bring up some issues that are important to consider. So the community is already under a lot of financial stress. because of inflation and interest rates. And because I understand that it's difficult to find the balance between what we need to provide the services that are required. It looks like the 7% proposed increase in the fees and charges for this financial year, it seems excessive to me, so I won't be supporting it, but I'll be happy to hear what my fellow councillors have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this? Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering, are we going to increase the recreational vehicle short-term parking for the first 24 hours slightly?
That was a good question.
5 days, yeah, I think we're going to
Did
do
we
$15.
suggest $15?
Yeah, and was it
From
like
memory?
40, what did we discuss for the 5 days? I can't remember.
Was it for
45?
35 or 40? I remember the $15.
Yeah, I remember it.
I'm sorry, what page is that on?
Well, my page numbers are marked up, so I'm not sure. I've got page one.
So I've got to, that was a week ago, man.
It's the second last page, I think, on the sort of council fees and charges.
There was discussion on that. More happened after I left the meeting, probably not.
There was certainly through me, there was certainly discussion, I wasn't clear that there was an absolute dollar figure settled on, but that can be amended. I'm just trying to find myself where it's gone.
Remember that the $15 was discussed fairly heavily. I can't remember
Can't remember the 5 days.
the number of days one.
Yeah.
Councillor Prince, you had an idea on that?
Yeah, I remember the $15, but I just thought we all agreed on that. There wasn't much negativity on it from memory.
I think it's still
can't remember.
That on acceptance of people who are around the table.
Yes, yes, it can
and
be.
maybe a slight increase to the 5 nights to like say $40. Because really they stay 2 and then it's free and it's charity.
Through the chair?
Yes,
Is
thank you,
there,
Councillor.
I seem to recall, yes, there was broad agreement around an increase, but some question around the context in terms of what would be reasonable or what would be, in the past council's had some criticism due to charging well below commercial rates, but I don't know what that looks like in this case, so.
Yeah, through me, that was part of the discussions around its pretty rudimentary facilities there. There's obviously a black water disposal side and water, and pretty basic shelter for table and chairs. So certainly going in the opposite direction of reducing fees is absolutely not possible by virtue of the competitive neutrality principles we're bound to comply with. So it's just a case of council's comfort level of what they're prepared to charge for the standard of that facility.
Do we have to decide that tonight, or can we check on some of the others on agreement in the room that we check that commerciality with some of the other sites around the area?
Yeah, there's no real operational issue with this component of the fees and charges.
Last member and second, are they comfortable with that? Yes, being worked through. Thank you. Is there any other questions regarding this or issues that Councillor Naropa brought up? Councillor Reynolds?
Through the chair, thank you. Just a bit of a question between the differences of Pembroke Park Dodgers Ferry and Dunalley. So Dunalley Recreational Ground, we don't have an hour. It's just a day fee instead of any hour fee. And then we don't charge for lighting for Dodgers Ferry Oval, but we do Pembroke. Is that because Dodgers contributed towards the funding of their lights, or?
Through me, the Dunalley has had an hourly fee for quite a few years for the Oval. At least the last 2 to 3 years. I look back further to know.
It's
It was
just,
done
just
today.
because it's underutilised then?
Well, it doesn't get utilised
Doesn't get
at all. And we can deal with that on a case by case basis, but in the last 3 years, we haven't had a case yet. The matter of Dodgers with the lights, the costs of that are with the club.
The club though.
Yes.
And that explains that one.
Certainly that.
And then I guess it's just between, because at the end of the day, the condition of the ovals themselves, there's not much difference between Pembroke and Dodgers Ferry, I don't believe, as far as surface goes. So should it not be even for the users of the sporting clubs to be paying equal amount? As far as women's football, men's football and cricket.
Great, the fees are formulated by us reviewing what it costs to operate each of the facilities. And the facilities at Pembroke Park, in terms of the new change rooms and the cost to council, are greater at Pembroke Park than at Dodgers Ferry. And as the general manager said, the Dodgers Ferry Football Club pay more of their outgoings because they have the ownership of their building.
Yeah.
So the cost to
That's
council is
what it is,
different.
though. Yeah, no, take that on board, thank you.
If there's nothing else, I shall put the 23-24 fees with understanding of us looking at the RV park. For acceptance. All those in favour? Against? You are. There we go. 17.1. Climate Council Cities Power Partnership. Moving please. Councillor Reid, that's very quick, and Councillor Mary Casada, thank you. And invite any discussion regarding this. It's a very good move. It allows us to tap into a lot of information that for a small council is not normally available for us inexpensively, and to understand what's happening around, and just here 145 member councils representing over 60% of Australia's population is quite significant to be part of that group, to understand some of these pressures on our community going forward. Any other comments at all, Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Mayor. Just very pleased to see that we're taking that next step, having already supported in principle and now taking a more practical step with the 5 pledge areas, which are all, again, things that the community, our community is particularly interested in. They're practical, and in most cases, we're already doing quite a bit. So that's good to see.
Councillor Casada?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question about the general manager mentioned before how this fits into a bigger strategy. You said something about the NRM strategy. Would you explain a little bit about that to put this in context?
Yeah, through me. So, the benefit of having a dedicated NRM officer now has been that there's a better focus on being able to pull together just what council can sustain and afford into the future around whether it's NRM or climate change matters. So, Dibas, who's the NRM officer, has proposed a draft NRM strategy for the council, and within that strategy it deals with what we'll be doing with regard to climate change, with weed management and reserve management plans. And with regard to climate change, this is one element of that, and he's also has factored in our existing contributions and efforts with the Regional Climate Change Initiative that's effectively run through the STCA by the Hobart Council. So the drafts have been prepared for the variety of documentation, but they haven't obviously come to council yet, but they're in the process of being formed up, and to the side of that, if you like, which we also need to square away, is just what we do by way of our engagement around the NRM strategy, council's engagement with the community, and how we set that up in terms of whether it's a community or an advisory group. That's still being formed up as well, which will be our view, at least at the staff levels, that we, based on the NRM strategy that we agree to, in terms of what we'll be delivering, what will be. I can't talk anymore.
What we're resourcing, mate.
Thanks, Russell.
Thanks so much.
Through the mayor, I think one thing to note that climate action isn't purely associated with natural resources, and that's just something that we need to be aware of in considering that as the context, that there's a broader context as well. And these pledges reflect that. They're about council operations more broadly in the community. And the community consultation around it and involvement, engagement is broader than NRM as well. But any improvements on that score will be much appreciated in the community, I'm sure.
Thank you. With that, I shall put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. And we move on to questions from the public, the gallery. Your turn, Sharon.
Thank you. A question rezoning. I recently travelled down Sugarloaf Road, probably about 5 kilometres in on the left-hand side. There was a house on a small block, just a medium block, and there were 2 units almost sitting right on the road. How do 2 units come to be on the one title with a house?
If you'd like to pass on the address to all the locations, the general manager will check and get back to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, just if you just state your name, please,
Okay.
for the records.
My name is Maria Sarkis.
Thank you, Maria.
We brought along the petition tonight on behalf of the residents of Vienna. I'd just like to tick a few points off with you. Recently, on the 2nd of May, Council approved the facility of a storage facility for a caravan and boat storage area. Now, the fact that this has been passed is brought to the question of people, and we consider that we are a community and we have rights to ask these questions. Will Council now consider the footpath that we requested before, because we're going to have to deal with a lot more traffic on the road? And when I talk about traffic on the road, I mean caravans being towed by vehicles, boats being towed by vehicles. We need a footpath, and that is for the safety of the people. Will Council consider that?
At present, there is no footpath under consideration in this year's budget facility. We're yet to discuss future projects. We're still dealing with the ones that we need to deal with at the moment. So it's not part of the next 12 months expected expenditure.
Right.
We're always happy to look at any proposal that has been, as well as footpaths in some other areas, rural living areas, if you like to call them that. on a regular basis. And it's like any other budget item, it is their consideration by the council.
Sure, yes. Well, we just want to emphasise that it now becomes an extreme safety issue. So put it on the agenda and do it. Second comment on that, in the report that went to council, it said that the speed limit in Sharp Point Road was 60 kilometres per hour. It is not 60 kilometres for the whole road, it's just a section of it. For the same reasons, safety reasons, would council consider dropping the 80 down to 60?
Can you just clarify for me, please, how far the 80 is and the 60?
When you come into Sharp Point Road on the corner of Penner and Sharp Point Road,
Yes.
coming along, that is then 80, and it goes along and then around a corner, dangerous corner, especially at the moment because all the Tas Water people are there working for the easement to go along. So that's a very bad corner. Then it goes round, and then when there's rural, low density residential, it then converts along the way to 60.
Thank you.
So it's that section.
Yeah, I think I've got it right.
Yeah.
Russell, can I just ask you to clarify what the process is? We made some speed limit changes probably 8 years ago out there with part of, I think it was Penner Road in that area near the junction. But can you just clarify and explain the process of looking at that, please? That would include our tapes and the measurements that we receive.
Yeah, and then council has the right to consider that, and they then approve it, it would then go to the Road Safety Commissioner to make a determination. So the determination of whether it's accepted or not is done by the Department of State Roads, but they'll only consider it on the council recommendation.
Right. That section of road is, the most of it, it'd be about 1 kilometre or so long, and it's a straight, and then a bend, a very bad bend. So on that straight, of course, there's speed limits everywhere, but the trucks that go along there, they don't go at 80. They exceed the speed limit all the time.
Yeah, we'd actually have data on what they're actually doing.
Yes, you have done data on that
Yeah,
before.
so if they could come forward in the next workshop, clarify that to council's discussion.
But time is of the essence with it because we have got this new facility coming and we have to, as a community, deal with it.
Yes, we've got a process we need to go through, Maria. So Russell just said he will find that data and bring to us about what the average speed of the vehicles is, because we've got to have all that information before we take it any further ourselves. So that's part of the process over the next couple of weeks for our next workshop.
Okay. Number 3, I have had trouble contacting the General Manager. At the last meeting on the 2nd of May, it was discussed that there would be an opportunity for people of Penner to speak and have a meeting. I've applied 3 times to the General Manager about that, and I haven't had a phone call back till today, about half an hour before your planning meeting. What is the protocol for that? And when should we expect an answer if we request a meeting? I know I had a phone call from you today.
So my
That was
apologies for the few days delayed getting back to you, but once this whole question time's over, I'm happy to work out a time with you now if you want to come into.
Well,
Come in this evening.
the 3 times that I requested, there was one in the middle, but the first time for the 2nd of May meeting, it was regarding that meeting. And
No, I wasn't aware of that, so.
this time it was regarding to this meeting. So I had to write an urgent letter to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of the first one, but I'm happy to make a time with you.
Is there a protocol? Is there a time length that you have to respond? And that applies to anything council does, you know. There must be timeframes that you have to respond.
Yes, there is.
There are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
And usually that's adhered to.
It's contained in our customer service charter. But as I said, I'm more than happy to meet with you this week if you want to continue.
Yeah,
You want
but
to
regarding these two council meetings, so. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, Sue, sir.
Yeah, Rendell Emmett from 595 Sharp Point Road, also one of the petitioners that Maria's just been mentioning. I just have a supporting statement in relation to the traffic and also the lack of a footpath. Not so long ago, I think it might have been 18 months or so ago, the council approved a retrospective approval for the sand mine to increase the tonnage that they've been using for some time. There's been an increase in the use of sand trucks, 10 to 20 per day. The road is becoming continually degraded because of the excess use. I was nearly hit by a truck putting the rubbish bin off the side of the road about 3 months ago. Now, I know, Russell, you've got some figures on the traffic issues, but I think it's about 5 years old. So it might be worthwhile, particularly with the prospect of heavy towing vehicles going for this caravan and boat storage, that a proper process is done to assess the traffic in the area. No footpath. There's women pushing prams on the side of the road that you have to get off on the dirt to actually let them get through. It's, I guess nothing much is going to happen until someone gets killed, and then everyone will be wondering why we didn't do something about this earlier. It's very hazardous, and especially getting towards dusk. School kids get the bus at the corner of Penner Road and Sharp Point Road. They have to battle the traffic as well. So something serious, and someone is going to get injured very badly, if not killed. So I think it should be a priority to do something about that.
Thank you. Yes.
Marie at Sharp Point Road, Penner. I have concerns about the new subdivision on Penner Road coming out of Midway Point, heading towards Sharp Point Road. On the particularly bad bend, the subdivision has a small turning lane if you're heading from Midway to that subdivision. The turning lane is wide enough for a golf cart. There's nowhere for cars to go on either side if they're held up or suddenly come upon a large vehicle, like there'll be a huge amount of trucks, presumably with the construction of the multiple dwellings, 200 odd properties up there over time. I would have thought a turning lane or space for someone to overtake on the inside. There's only a barrier between the road and the water. There's nowhere to go, and you just come upon it, and the turning lane isn't sufficient for a truck or indeed probably a ute. So I'd like to know what size of regulations for a turning lane, and the vision from both ends directions is really limited.
There is regulations in relation to line of sight and speed of vehicles.
They would have had to put in a traffic management study as part of the development. So I can look that up for you.
Yeah, Russell's just made a note of that, so we can follow through on that. If you want to catch up with him and just give him a contact name, email, phone number, we can get back to you with some of those details and what would have happened or what has happened.
I'm surprised that there wasn't sufficient room allowed in the subdivision for at least more lanes, like further up there's that tiny roundabout, which was there obviously to facilitate some sort of stormwater construction. But here I originally thought it was going to be a cul-de-sac. I was quite shocked when it was actually open onto Penner Road. And it's right on that, just over that bad bend, and line of sight in both directions is extremely poor. But the width of the turning lane is poor.
Okay.
We'll look at that and come back to you on that.
Thank you.
Anything else at all?
I have on that other issue,
Yes,
regarding the petition of tonight. You spoke about there's going to be a review of that strategy. Will council make a commitment to initiate an amendment to that strategy?
We can't make a commitment here without all the details, but in the past we have supported changes to the zoning over there several times in the failed attempts. we will need to go through a process with our staff to make sure that all that information still lines up. So we can't say here and now that we will, but the history says that we have supported changes to over there. And that will be a full
We have a
review of the whole
timeframe.
municipality.
We have a time frame. We know we've got this time frame that the general manager talked about. How does council fit into that, achieving an amendment? And when do you have to start working on it?
I'll get the general manager to explain that, because he's been working with other councils to formulate that possible timeline once the government gives the go-ahead.
And how do we fit in as a community? Because we think we are a community and our community has been left out in the dark now. We want action. And it's not just, you spoke previously about farmers. It's not only farmers at Penners. There's 26 rural blocks, but there's 100 residential people. And the 100 residential people, they matter. They should be able to have an opinion. And they've asked they're supporting this amendment. So we want our council to support that amendment too.
We have numerous, and that would run into dozens of areas in the municipality that will be under review. And that is part of a process, not just for Shark Point Road and the Penner area. There are areas of Southern Beaches and all covering our whole municipality. And we have people of all sorts of land ownership wanting different parts of that, and that will all be part of the assessment and also the communication back to what the public want. Now, sometimes some people want to change their property, others in the area don't want to change. Once again, that's all part of the consultation. But I'll just get the general manager to reiterate the possible timelines.
Our request is just to be part of that process.
And certainly, I certainly don't know anybody in this municipality that's not going to be part of that process, for sure.
Thank you.
Is that time, is it, Deidre, or
No, with my son.
spare time?
You may not speak to me again.
No,
Oh, yes, sorry.
I just want to put.
Sorry, your name?
Paul Careers. I recently purchased with my partner down at Shark Point Road. The reason why we moved from North Hobart, an inner city, really busy, getting busier and busier each year, was because we had the fortunately that we bought this land with a house on it, with the view to do it up. And with the view that we live in a beautiful environment, we can see the water, we can see the trees. We just feel like we have been let down because this is the environment that we moved into for part of our retirement as well. And now we find out that we're going to have caravans and boats stuck on the front when we drive in, which, okay, you probably don't take into consideration the aspect of how it doesn't beautify the area. But for us, driving in and seeing that, that's a real put-off. And the concern that we have, if this is the first venture that's going to be passed by council, are there going to be more? Do we really need to sell our property now and get out while we can? Because I don't see the vision in this place, a vision for creating a beautiful environment for everyone. That to me is not creating a beautiful environment. And the other thing I want to bring up is that the person at 404 who is going to put the caravans and boats on that land, he has planted tiny little 1 foot trees on the property as part of the shield. Now, they're not even native to this area. What is council going to do about that? Shouldn't we be encouraging people who move into this area to plant native plants? I mean, the council's got plenty of pamphlets outside telling people not to plant these plants because they're weeds or that. Yet this person is planting pine trees which are going to grow, well, they're down here now 10 years before they're up here, which means it's going to be visibly awful to look at when you drive in. When you drive into a rural area, you don't expect to see that. Now, you guys can go home to your houses, and hopefully you won't have that next door to you. But there are some people who live in that street and will have it right opposite and next door to them. Is that fair? I don't think so.
Thank you, Paula. Planning scheme is in place, and yes, it is out of date with the land use strategy, and we've known that for some time. Nobody in this council has the ability or the power to change that. We operate as a planning authority with planning matters, not as a council. So it's two totally different jobs. We do have a vision for this area, and part of that is to preserve agricultural land as well. Unfortunately, part of that preservation of agricultural land is the state planning authority also has multiple uses that can be on that land, as with all other zoning aspects. So sometimes in regional areas, the planning scheme is an absolute pain in the butt to us. Other times it is very supportive of landowners who want to do things. And quite often in a sprawling municipality like this, we have people that want to farm the land at various times, but then want to also capitalise and sell it for rural living or smaller. Quite often the argument is, how small can we go with the blocks for financial retirement reasons normally, or investment. So there is a lot of different aspects when you come to the planning. And yes, a lot of us, even in this room, are affected by various developments that pop up around them. So it's not unique to Shark Point Road, but it is something we take very passionately. From preserving land for rural purposes to limiting the spread of urban areas, we look at the type of land, and that's why we have supported this change in the zoning to that area previously with previous councils, because we believe it is not probably the best use of land in that area. We've got quite a few other areas like that we have also been fighting on behalf of developers and community to make some of these changes, but we, as in all councils in Tasmania for the last 6 years, have been fighting an uphill battle. Through some pretty good efforts of the General Manager and the General Manager of Brighton, James Dryberg, they at least now have the funding, which we didn't have 12 months ago, from the government, and the acknowledgement that it's got to happen. We just can't get that start time to do it. We've also eliminated probably, my guesstimate, 18 months out of that process by doing it ourselves, and the government's funding of a position to oversee that, and councils taking on the financial responsibility, and it's huge when you've got to do all these things to prove it. Zoning rechange, and it will be a big cost to this municipality, as with other municipalities. To get it done, we believe that we can do it probably 12 months quicker than what a government body would do. So we've put our hand up along with most other councils around us to do that sort of work program and schedule. So we are doing what we can, and vision can be different from different people sitting around this table or different people feeding into us. So that vision sometimes is to see an area like, say, if I could be able to say Oriel, that is beautiful farmland that has gradually been just subdivided down to small blocks over the years. Councillor Torenius, when she was mayor, was extremely strong when the irrigation scheme came in, and so was our planners and our council at the time at preserving rural land that come under that irrigation area, and part of that being the grey water also that is overused. So there's no perfect answer in amongst this other than we're a community people ourselves, and we take this, our role, extremely serious as a planning authority as well as councillors, but many, many, many times the roles are conflicted. But that's part of what we wear as being elected officials. One of the big hassles at the moment is that because of councillors in many areas of the state failing to take their responsibility as a planning authority correctly, it is giving ammunition to the government to take planning away from councils. So it could well be in the future that planning is decided by an authority in Hobart somewhere, and it'll be what I consider to be a rubber stamp yes or no, regardless of what the vision or the thought pattern or anything else might be. So yes, we do take our roles very seriously. It doesn't keep everybody happy, but we're the ones sitting here that have to do it, and happy to take comments or discussion further with it, but it is a very big role to do, and it weighs heavy on us more times than not.
And I think I stood up to say that because I want to put a human face to it. We're just not numbers. You know,
No,
we live in the area, we like the area, we moved down here because it was, to me, a green area, and now it's just becoming a nightmare. Because how do I know it's going to stop at that?
Paula, don't want to be argumentative, and I'm certainly not trying to be so, but I can hear a lot of people now when that, if that does change to rural living, saying, why are you allowing all that farmland to go to residential area? Now, I'm not disagreeing or arguing, but what we have to balance up as elected members of this community, my old age comment of, I used to think there was two sides to every story, right and wrong, and everybody's got a different version of right and wrong. Now I know there's hundreds, and the classic example is when you get a whole row, like was on that petition, 99, was it, 98 signatures on there, is an example of 99 different versions of what is seen as perfect for that area. So there's no answer, but we have to weigh up both sides of those arguments. Sometimes it's clear. I can tell you more times than not, it is very, very awkward. Very awkward. So please, the doors are always open to any of us to listen, talk, to look, to understand. None of us are perfect in our thought pattern. We learn as we go on these things. We have very, very good staff that interpret various bits of legislation, including the planning scheme, which is a nightmare. I don't know why you'd want to be a planner in this lifetime. I really don't, but they're usually very, very accurate. Yes, we can question it, but if you question too far, it can be a very expensive exercise that we all get dragged into. So doors always open. Appreciate you coming along and saying what you have. It doesn't go astray, it sinks into everybody, and we do what we can. So thank you, Paul.
Mayor, can you provide some examples of what a rural zoning, what could go ahead without council's discretion?
Yes, we've had some interesting discussions. Some of the Chinese developers that have approached the general manager and I at various stages, I can think of a very big property where the general manager indicated to them and some government people that were there that 12 accommodation units was a possibility on a rural property. A few months later, we found out they put a zero on the end of it and come back to us and wanted to put up an enormous amount on it, and said, you said, well, 12 is 12. So there's limitations to the size. I've not just asked the GM of other pursuits, but certainly on the sort of farm sheds, and I can't think of too many other uses outside of rural now that might be appropriate.
I have to get the scheme, I can't.
So things like polytunnels, wood yards, things like that don't need council approval to go ahead on rural property, do they?
I have to check. There's so many, the planning scheme now is about 3 inches thick, so even permitted uses, which are uses which council cannot refuse, there's a whole range of conditions that go with that in order for that permitted status to remain. So I need to check.
That's out of our control.
Thanks. Any other questions at all?
I have just a comment to make. Earlier on in the meeting, there was some talk about what rural was and what rural living was, and nobody seemed to know what it was, the rural living side of it. Talking about agriculture, if we had rural living, it wouldn't stop farming in the area, because rural living, according to the planning minister, is for hobby farmers. So hobby farms can still exist. it's not getting rid of, rural, agriculture. It's allowing for agriculture, in actual fact, that classification by having hobby farms.
That's correct. I'll put a cautionary note on that, that when somebody moves in from out of area, quite often they complain about the activity that's been there for 30 or 40 years next door, and that causes enormous complications for that business. And we see that on a very regular basis all over the state. So, yes, it might read right sometimes, but once again, it depends on your neighbours. The classic example of what we're talking about here now with the caravan development depends on the neighbours and what they want to do and how far they want to push a point. So, yes, it's allowed, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be a smooth road.
No, but in rural living, you can have a hobby farm on it.
Correct.
So we're not asking to get rid of agriculture.
No, but a lot of developers, as soon as it goes.
I heard the comment on residential. It's not residential. It is rural on the northern side of the road.
Yes.
Low density residential on the southern side.
Yes, but you're still going to have residents.
Yes.
On the top side in rural living. So each time a new home is built, I put the precautionary thing there that you have complications based on setbacks of farming operations or rural operations. So this is the complications with the planning scheme. It's not as straightforward as the categories that you may read. Quite often we, in a application, might read something about a boundary setback, but then it's got to be read and understood in conjunction with several other parts of the planning scheme, and that's the most difficult part. So residents for and against use that against us as a council or neighbours, or for or against the arguments that they have. So it's an extremely complicated thing that if we don't get it right here, it goes straight to legal and becomes a very large argument with legal experts. We are normal residents, the same as you are as a developer and a landowner. That's exactly what we are too. But nothing is as easy as the black and white word that's written there unless you understand the full scheme. So I'm just saying it as precautionary because a lot of us are in that situation and get caught on a regular basis.
But each of those cases will be dealt with individually.
Yeah. Yes, very much so, yes. Yep, on the merit of each one as an individual.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have to, quite often we can go off on a tangent and think, what if? And I get a little tap on the shoulder from the general manager saying, to the point of the application before us at the moment. So, yeah, very much so, thank you. Appreciate that. We need to move into close now. I'd like to thank you all for your contribution and yes, Jess will just come down and grab your names and that so we can do that correspondence. And Robert, you will shoot down to Maria regarding that meeting, please. If anybody in the council would like to grab a drink, we'll just, while it's happening, just have a 3 or 4 minute break. Thank you.
It's very good reach, actually.